Russia has defaulted on its sovereign debt. Moscow owes about $40 billion of sovereign bonds. Have the global sanctions now finally caught up? Is Russia in trouble, or does it still have friends when it comes to handling its economy? The foreign assets and foreign currency that have been frozen by the international bodies is a grave concern for Russia, given that even if Russia wants to make the payments, it really cannot. This sanction regime, or the sanctions that have been placed against Russia, with Russia now defaulting, is a grim reminder of the political outcast it once had become and is now on the way to becoming. But is it? While the West wants to isolate Russia, there are still many countries who are standing by Moscow and are engaging Russia. So is it real trouble for Russia? Or will Russia see through this crisis as well as it did in the 90s? Now, with the economy and finances at stake, how severe are the damages? Now, Russia had $640 billion in foreign currency and gold reserves held overseas. Russia owes $40 billion in sovereign bonds and half of it to foreigners. That's the part that has been defaulted this year, and it is a historic moment nonetheless. Having said that, the last time Russia defaulted was after the breakup of the Soviet Union. It also defaulted on domestic bonds in late 1990s but recovered very soon after. Investors across the world were monitoring what is happening to Russia and what is becoming of the situation vis-a-vis the West. They were monitoring the global sanctions and therefore anticipated the default that now is to be. This is a huge setback for Russia, since Russia has not defaulted in so many years, and now with this default they are going to be out or cut off from the bond borrowing market until they pay their dues. Now, even before the sanctions came about, Russia knew that it was due to make those payments of the sovereign debt, and therefore they offered to pay in rubles, but the West refused to take that payment. And that's the reason why Russia today is in a position of not being able to service those dues. It is a difficult situation for Russia, but investors and countries that are engaging Russia do know that it is not for lack of money or that their economy is in trouble is the reason why they couldn't pay the debt. It is because all their assets abroad are frozen and the West is not willing to accept money or payments in rubles. Russia and Moscow now have already blamed the West of having orchestrated the situation that Russia is in when it comes to defaulting on their payments. Moscow says that the situation is manufactured by the West. Now, they have missed their deadline, but let's see how it impacts investors. The last time they were in such a situation, it created a ripple effect on global economy. This time around, again, holders of bonds, for instance funds that invest in emerging market bonds, could take serious losses. Despite the seriousness of this issue, it has not put a significant dent in their regular lives. The global economy, on the other hand, has taken a lot of heat due to the war in Ukraine. Experts estimate that due to the war, the global GDP growth shrunk from 4% to 3.2% in 2022. While sanctions are at play, Russian oil trade is booming. They're reportedly earning $1 billion a day in fossil fuel exports. That's not it. Even the ruble has become stronger in the recent past. From the pre-war to the post-war days, immediately after the war, we saw ruble drop drastically with all the sanctions that were imposed. But with the measures that were taken by Russia, with how Russia continued to engage its partners like China and India, with how gas and oil exports didn't stop, and now Russia forcing Europe to really engage their oil markets not in dollars, petrodollars, but in rubles. With that, in the recent past, we have seen ruble growing stronger and stronger by the day. So much so that ruble today is stronger than even the pre-war ruble rates or the pre-war days. While the G7 countries have been discussing and contemplating price cap over Russian oil to ensure stopping flow of funds to Russia, that might not really help because Russia could circumvent such arm twisting and price caps and continue selling their oil anyway.
For more informative videos like this, keep watching India Today News Mo.